This is the Chapter 17, Segment 2 outline for behavioral neuroscience. We're going to get started with a couple different types of memory. First up is priming, which is a change in the processing of a stimulus as a result of prior exposure to the same stimulus. Perceptual, and then the part of that is perceptual priming, which is based on the visual form of words, and it's related to reduced activity in the bilateral occipitotemporal cortex. Another type of learning is associative learning, which involves relations between events, between two or more stimuli, or a stimulus and response, or action and its consequence. Operant learning is a type of associated learning, which is formed between an individual's behavior and the consequence of that behavior. Classical conditioning is initially neutral stimulus that is used to predict an event. Pavlov's dogs is an example of an experiment in which he rung a bell before giving them a type of food, and that eventually, whenever the dogs heard the bell, even though the bell had nothing to really directly do with the food, it would make the dogs salivate. So yeah, in this type of experiment, there would be an unconditioned stimulus and then an unconditioned response, in which case then you give them a conditioned stimulus following the unconditioned stimulus, which results in a conditioned response, and you would eventually get a conditioned response with the unconditioned stimulus, or with the conditioned stimulus. With associative learning, cerebellar circuits are crucial. Next one is cognitive map. It's an understanding of the relative spatial organization of objects and info. Animals must learn some details of the maze by actually going through the maze. And the hippocampus is the part of the brain that's crucial for spatial learning. Within the hippocampus, there are place cells, and there's two different types of place cells. Grid cells, which fire when an animal crosses intersection points of abstract grid, and border cells, which fire from arrival at the perimeter of the map. Many species have manner of making a living that has left an imprint on the hippocampus. Monkeys have place cells and spatial view cells, and it's been found that lesions of the hippocampus in birds impairs their ability to store and retrieve caches of food. Successive processes capture, store, and retrieve info to the brain. 4 different duration categories for memory. There is sensory buffers, which is involved with just the briefest of memories. Short-term memory, which lasts a few seconds, or as long as rehearsal continues, like continuing to do work or a task. And in the absence of rehearsals, the short-term memory only lasts about 30 seconds. And with working memory, this is a type of short-term memory is working memory, which is memory that occurs while working on solving a problem. And there's 3 responses: the phonological loop, which is auditory, the visuospatial loop, which is visual, and the episodic buffer, which is integrated info. Intermediate term memory, which is memory longer than short-term memory, but far from permanent. Brain regions that do initial processing of stimuli also act as memory buffers for holding the stimuli in working memory. Next type of memory is long-term memory, which can last days to years. Short-term memory and long-term memory rely on different processes to store info. With long-term memory, there's primary effect, and a thing that can affect memory is primary effect, which is if you give someone a list of words, the primary effect is in which they'll memorize the earliest few words the most, and then with recency effect, they'll memorize the most fewer words that they read, and the words in the middle will be forgotten. This is shown in a U-shaped serial position curve, in which recency effect is short-lived and attributed to working memory. Primary effect lasts longer, long-term memory. 3 stages for creating and retaining memories. Encoding of raw info from sensory channels into STM. Many brain areas involved with initial processing of stimuli. Few few are involved with encoding, though. However, then going into the consolidation of volatile short-term memories into more durable long-term memory. In which case the temporal lobe is crucial for the consolidation of memory. Conversion of memories from short-term memory to long-term memory. Then there's the retrieval of the stored info for use in future behavior. Many cognitive processes are involved, like attention. Retrieval from the long-term memory makes the memories temporarily plastic again and amenable to updating and strengthening. And not all memories are created equal, and in fact, emotion can actually have an impact on memory.